It is 9 o'clock. I call this Sawyer County Public Safety Committee meeting to order. Can we have roll call, please? Present.
Mark Helwig.
Yes.
Jeff Haney. Marshall Savitsky.
Here.
John Sarowski.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. Pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, certification of compliance with open meetings law, Madam Clerk.
This meeting has been noticed to the public and news media as required by section 19.84 of the Wisconsin statutes.
Okay, all right, number 5, the meeting agenda has been set. Number 6, public comment. Ben, you want to do it on when it comes up to the animal control, right? Okay. Okay, Linda?
Good
Linda
morning,
Zilmer?
Linda
Go
Zilmer.
ahead.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? I am unmuted. Hello? Can you hear me? I'm unmuted. Hello?
Now we can hear you, Linda.
Oh, thank you so much. Linda Zilmer, Edgewater property owner. Earlier this morning, I sent an email to committee members, and there are a number of items on there that are more likely to be for future discussion, such as reporting on ambulance times of call for services and other agencies responding within Sawyer County. The main thing I wanted to ask the committee this morning is to please consider separating emergency communication needs from broadband opportunities, and to work with LCO and the towns to better define what a communication system might look like. And at this time, please do not move forward with bug tussle. They may be an opportunity in the future, but I think they're taking on an awful lot right now. An item that was not in my email this morning, but is something that I would like to ask for a future agenda item, is a report on compliance within the jail. If anybody has been following what has been happening in Washburn County due to a number of classifications requiring separation of people in the jail, they have a need to make some changes, and I would appreciate a report on what Sawyer County's situation is. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Linda. All right, any more for public comment? None? Okay, number 7, consider approval of minutes from the last public safety meeting. Mr. Sorolski.
I'd like to make the motion to accept.
And I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Sorolski and a second by Mr. Savitsky to approve the 8/1/24 public safety minutes. Any more discussion on it? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, motion carries. All right, number 8, judge's report. No judge here today? Okay, we'll go back to her when she gets here then. All right, thank you. All right, number 9, clerk of courts, office reports. Marge?
Nothing more to add to my report other than tomorrow's trial that was added last week. Last minute, it's time limits, so we were hoping it would go away, but it sounds like it's still gonna go, so. Yep,
Okay, any questions for Marge?
Did you fill that part-time spot in your office?
we did not yet. It's hard to fill them.
Would it be easier to fill if it was a full-time spot?
I believe it would be.
Okay, any more questions? All right, thank you for your report, Marge, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, number 10, Sheriff's Department report. Sheriff, you want to add anything before we go on, or Lieutenant? Go ahead, Mr. Rapinski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You see our patrol call volume has gone up to 921 from previous month, bringing our 3 month tracking to 687 in June, 770 in July. This is oddly enough equal to where we were at last year for this time. For the reporting period, our deputies have issued 62 citations for traffic offenses, 33 written warnings, and 3 non-traffic citations. For community maps, there have been 21 total crashes, 4 personal injury in the reporting period, bringing our totals to 229 crashes, resulting in 53 personal injury and 2 fatalities. We're actively hiring for a vacant patrol deputy position. We have had relatively few qualified applicants, meaning they've already been certified and have experience. However, we do have several in the pipe, and we're very hopeful that we can get that successfully filled. We recently hosted a 3-day patrol rifle class, which is always popular with our staff. We invited the City of Hayward Police Department as well as several deputies who partook in learning both the weapon system and qualification standards in long rifles. We took part of the Excellent Trout Fest, which is very successful as well, and looking forward to the Fat Tire Race, September 14th, and our final event for the year, the 46th Annual Stone Lake Cranberry Fest, October 5th. Okay, my report.
Good.
You guys know if that's gonna be, what do you call it, reference to the judge, gonna be dedicated to the judge, the Fat Tire Race? I know he's always been involved in that.
I'm unaware. I haven't met with Peter Spencer yet, the race director, but I'm sure it'll be something we discuss.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Any more questions for Lieutenant Rapinski? All right. Number B, jail report, Lieutenant Waller.
Thank you. August population seen on average 61 and a quarter, 19.25 of those being females, 42 males. Our average probation incarcerations at 21.25, pre-sentence incarcerations at 32, and we have an average of 8 sentence inmates. The day that this report was generated, we had 1 on electronic monitor. I believe there's 3 today. And their current unemployment rate is at 71.4.
I see I made your list here.
Yeah.
Buckholz. Oh,
Not you.
God, I hope not. I seen that earlier, but okay. All right. Any questions for the lieutenant? Go ahead, Mark.
I do, I see a hold for other, out of counties. What are those?
So individuals that are arrested here for warrants for neighboring counties, or if they're statewide issued warrants, we'll hold them until another agency picks them up.
And we have 2 of them.
Yep, correct.
Thank you.
Okay, any more questions for the lieutenant? Okay, not. Number C, Communication Center and Emergency Management.
Thank you. The Communications Center recently received a donation from the Back to Blue Foundation of 6 new dispatch chairs, which have been very exciting for our dispatchers. During the storms of August 26th and 27th, we received several calls of trees down and power line issues. So we're very thankful for the fast response of the Township Highway Department and other public service crews that helped clear the roads that night, on top of a SWAT call that also ensued that night as well. We are waiting for our EZNet project to continue to kick off. We're waiting for AT&T to assign a project manager, which has become a regional issue with AT&T in the area with surrounding counties. As Lieutenant Ripsinski said, our calls for service are up. Total number of calls year to date as of generation of this report is 12,740. Emergency management update. National Night Out was a success. We served about 350 people. Would like to thank everyone that came out to help kick it off and also that came to enjoy it. Emergency management will be assisting environmental health with a clean sweep that will take place on September 25th at the fairgrounds at 2 p.m. I assisted LCO emergency management as well as Deputy Jensen and Officer Anderson with their ALICE training just at the end of August for the staff members. 2 sessions were offered and had a great turnout at both. We'll be assisting with a tabletop for active shooter as well as full-scale exercises in the future. We also, at the very end of August, had 2 search and rescue calls. Both were successful, so it's a good turnout for everyone on that as well.
Okay, go ahead, Mark.
For some people who may not know what ALICE means, could you explain that, please?
I would love to. However, I don't remember the acronym off the top of my head. It's Lieutenant, do you know what it is off the top of your head?
Stumped you.
I've I've been to them trainings and I don't remember what it stands for.
It's about locking down or getting out of the building. You have your options of,
Google says that it is alert, lockdown, inform, counter, and evacuate.
Oh, thank you, Judge.
I got two of them.
All right, any more questions for Deputy Rupinski? All right. I think we're gonna go back to the judge's report before we go into this code enforcement, because this might take just a little bit. So Judge, we're gonna open up the floor to you, please.
All right, I was trying to think of everything I wanted to say, jotted down really quick because I just ran from a hearing. But everything has been going really well. I have been here a year now on August 1st, so we've had two judges now for a year. I think that we've been able to see, I missed some of the reports from the beginning, but I think we can see, obviously, it's working, it's helping. Jail numbers are significantly down, which helps the jailers. It helps the individuals who are in the jail get more resources and more sort of more a better ratio, I would say. There are some court security, I think, staffing concerns. I don't know if that was brought up yet or at all. And I think there's a plan probably already in the works. And I don't know if it's staffing. I don't know if it's being able to get people in that position. I don't know if it's maybe altering job duties, but with appearances in court, obviously best case scenario is to have a court security in each courtroom. And then also somebody who would be able to bring people back and forth from the jail or get them on Zoom for their jail. Oh, no.
Sign off and sign there.
I don't know. I got scared when I seen my name, and that guy's gonna carry me out of here or what?
That's, I can hear.
There it is.
All right. All right, but on that, I believe that there's a plan to go forward. I just haven't had an opportunity to discuss it yet. And then also on security, I was sick for a little bit last month, so we didn't get to have a security meeting, which we want to do quarterly. I think we did send an email out today. No, not yet, almost, to set up another meeting to be able to do that. It's the securities facilities meeting that we need to have quarterly. Recovery court is going really, really well. We've phased up several people from the first phase now into the second phase. And that is going to, as individuals continue to phase up through the process, that means we can have more individuals coming in to be participants of recovery court. And as individuals will phase up, they'll require less hands-on, less testing, less management, essentially. So that will give us kind of more time also. But otherwise, it's going really, really well so far. I can't remember exactly. Is it 8 people I think we have? 8? Is it 8 or 9? I think it might be 9. 9 individuals. And yeah, I think that the success that those individuals are having are a testament to the management that we have from Katie Ann and Katie Ann Dussel from Justice Point, and the rest of our team. Our team is invested and I think that if anyone else wants to be a part of it, it's a really awesome experience. It's a really great way to be able to see another perspective of the epidemic that's going on in our county, which obviously we all know is surrounded with fentanyl and meth use and things like that. And it's heartbreaking to see. So being able to be on a positive end of it, not just in the negative, which is our typical, adversarial court processing people through the criminal system, to be able to be on the positive side and getting people to be a survivor of this epidemic is, it really is very meaningful and it's helpful. So if anybody would like to be a part of it, join our team, let us know. Let's see, I'm thinking, is that everything? I can't think of anything else.
Okay.
Cut me off.
Go ahead, Mr. Hill.
Judge, when do they meet? When do you guys meet?
Okay, so we have, our actual recovery court is every other week. It's on Wednesdays. And we've altered times around because probably, again, because I talk too much. So we were taking way too long and people were glaring daggers at me because they wanted to go home. And I'm like, okay, I'll stop talking. But so we moved it up so that now it's happening, I think, our team meeting that we have prior, where we brief each person's case before we go into court is at 1 o'clock on every other Wednesday. And then the actual recovery court starts at 2 o'clock every other Wednesday. We have our steering committee meetings. We're going back to monthly for those meetings. And I believe there's one on the 19th. Something like that. It's a Thursday. Yep, so there are the 26th. Okay, so there are 3 different meetings. The steering committee meeting, which is kind of a large group meeting who's managing recovery court, essentially. Then there's the team meeting that we have right before we go into court, which is prepping and seeing the progress of each individual person, seeing the things that we need to talk about, the things that we need to work on. And then we go into court. And that's where, we have our group setting. And also if there's time after court, after Judge Yackel and I leave, then Katie Ann will sometimes do a debrief with the participants and kind of talk about how court went. So it sounds like a lot, I'm sure, but it's amazing.
I just want to make one more comment that obviously you're making a difference because I see they only have 3 awaiting court on the report, so you are making a difference.
Thank you. I think so.
Okay, thanks, Judge. Any more questions for her? Keep up the good work. All right, now we'll go back to our agenda number E, code enforcement specialist. Jazan, we're gonna do this. Why don't you just give us your end of the month report and then we'll go back to the animal control enforcement CAT procedure.
Sounds good. Okay. So for August, our revenue was staying pretty consistent. Our dog license sales have pretty much plateaued. They're still pretty low as it's late in the licensing season. However, our impound fees kind of increased mainly because the admissions to the pound are staying pretty consistent with being high for the summer. But the dogs that we impound are staying longer in our pound. So before they get reclaimed or go to NHS or anything like that. So that's kind of why that's a little bit higher. So we've been seeing, a lot of at-large dog calls. That continues to be our top complaints. And I also got to receive a cows at-large. So I got to go chase some cows. That was new. Otherwise, the facility, we're still working on painting. We got all of the rooms done, but the one main room. And then we're also looking at refinishing the floors. And then zoning and public health. Same thing, pretty much. Still doing the letters, doing on-site visits when needed, and then still attending meetings when needed as well.
Good. Any questions? Okay, thank you. All right, now we're gonna go to the animal control ordinance enforcement of cats/cat procedures. I see this is becoming a problem. I've got a call or two on this. And the ordinance, I guess, I'm not sure how the previous Sherry handled these cat problems or if there was ever any. Sheriff, anybody, can you put a light on that?
In the past, cats have not been an enforced issue. I know Sherry did not have facilities there at the pound to contain or hold cats, and cats are a different animal. Even by state statute, I think dogs are the big issue. That's why dogs are addressed in state statute separate from the other animals.
Okay. So I guess my question is then, if it's in the ordinance, it's not really a cat definition, it's all animals. But that's still, the cat would fall under that it's in our ordinance. So I guess I'm wondering why, I know we can't be able to enforce all the cat laws because them little stinkers run all over Sawyer County. They're down by me, they're all over. But I think when we get a call for a cat disturbance, our animal control officer should handle it and do what the procedure says in our ordinance. The ordinance is there for a reason. If we're not gonna follow that ordinance, then we gotta change that. But I don't think we need to change it. If she can, or Chaz gets a call about wherever a cat complaint, she goes out there, she does what she has to. And she's not gonna be able to get all the cats and bring them in. That's not gonna happen. But there must be a way that we can make this ordinance work as it's stated. Go ahead.
What is the ordinance on cats?
Well, it's at large. You know, it follows under there. Can you state that for him?
Yeah, so in our ordinance, it doesn't state cats really at all. It really defines dogs, and then in broad terms throughout it, it says animals, which yes, cats do classify as animals. So that's about it for cats technically.
Wait a second. Okay. Is the issue feral cat?
No.
No.
Oh, okay.
I mean, there's a
so-
lot, Judge, you're right, there's a lot of feral cats out there.
Okay.
But I'm talking about the ones that are, Ben, I'll give you a chance in a minute, okay? Okay. I know there's a lot of feral cats out there.
Sure.
And I know there's a lot of pets out there that people have cats. They once in a while get away. I guess if we don't want to enforce this, then we need to change this ordinance.
Well, my issue, I guess, is the ordinance, I guess, is very vague. If you want to even say that for us cats, just says animals. So if anything, it sounds like we may need to change the ordinance and, put something in there about cats if need be, or, I don't really know what the answer is at this time. One moment, sir. Thank you. But this gentleman here, we'll give him a moment to speak, and then we'll understand.
I know,
But
I didn't cut you off, Martin. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
go ahead.
Keep going. Go ahead.
it just seems like there has been an issue. And I mean, it's only one that I'm aware of. And it doesn't sound like the issue was, excuse me, taken care of the way the individual cared. But at the same time, if we don't have an actual ordinance about for cats themselves, how can we enforce something?
Ben, come up and speak.
Yeah.
Benjamin Kurtzwell, 16040W West Lane, Hayward, Wisconsin. I'm also currently the chairman for the town of Hayward. This issue started months ago in my neighborhood. We're not talking feral cats, we're talking at-large animals under the restraint version of animal control. And it does mention all animals, but it also mentions in the paragraph about keeping dogs and cats that are in heat indoors and away from other animals. So cats are mentioned by name in the ordinance, and all animals. Chaz has mentioned about chasing cows. So if we're just going to do dogs, that means Chaz isn't going to chase cows either. So the issue started months ago, where I had a neighbor's cat on my property. I had a collar with a number, called the number, it was a neighbor. I tried working with the neighbor to resolve this issue, and the situation deteriorated. Mid-July, I contacted animal control. I had contacted Chaz numerous times, sent some pictures, timestamp pictures of various infractions. About a month ago, I had contacted Chaz about, here's the last infractions. Is there going to be a fine or some type of enforcement? Because I know that she had said that she had spoke to the property owners multiple times. And that time I was told there was no fine going to be issued and that this part of the ordinance was not going to be enforced. Again, the story I heard from Chaz and Mr. Alvarado was that after conferring with each other, Mr. Alvarado decided that this was not a part of the ordinance that we should enforce. It is clear in the ordinance that it should be enforced. So now it's been a month since I brought this issue up or pressed it a little bit more with Mr. Alvarado and Animal Control. And now, instead of enforcement of this issue, we're here trying to change the ordinance. They're talking about changing it. So still, there's an enforcement issue of the ordinance that's on the books right now. It is clear. It does say cats. It says all animals. Like I said, Chaz just mentioned about chasing cows. So if we're going to change the ordinance and you want to do it, that's, I guess, up to you. But you got to have to give property owners a way. I'm a cat guy. I love cats. But you got to give property owners a way to have their own rights on their property enforced, because I'm being told, anecdotally, well, the sheriff told me too, that if I did something to that cat, I would be brought up on charges. But there's nothing I can do if I have at-large, not feral, at-large cats in my yard doing whatever they want. There's nothing I can do about it. I don't think that's in the spirit of the law. I understand that collecting the animals may be a problem when it happens after hours or on the weekend. That's why I thought a fine would be a good start, because I have a feeling a fine would probably prohibit that behavior because they weren't listening to me as a neighbor or to Chaz when she talked to him nicely. So here we are. We're talking about enforcing one issue that's pretty clear in the ordinance with documentation. And a month later, here we are talking about changing it. So that's the issue. That's the complaint that has come up. I looked at the ordinance, it was clear. So after the deteriorating relationship with my neighbor, I contacted Animal Control, and now here we are at the public safety ordinance. So any other questions about the story or anything else? Okay, thank you.
Brought me a lot of clarity. So
Go ahead.
well, I was just gonna say, I followed exactly everything that you were saying. I think that what you said makes total sense to me. Just brought me a lot of clarity, I guess, on the issue. I thought we were talking about feral cats because, yeah, that's definitely an issue too. And probably kind of like a stem off of the issue that you're bringing up, because if people's cats are not fixed and they're going and roaming around the neighborhood, that's making more feral cats also. So just my comment, I guess.
Okay, thank you. So what Ben said about in the ordinance, cats are in there. You just got to read it.
I put it up on the screen here for you.
Okay.
Kind of at the bottom. So under restraint, section 4210, section A is where we're referring to that all animals are to be kept under restraint and should not be permitted to run at large. And item C of that is where it says every female dog or cat in heat shall be confined in a building or secure enclosure, et cetera, et cetera. And then below it, I think what Chaz is referring to and some of their comments is that there are some specific references to cats, like a couple, I think 2 in here. One is that section C, but there's a lot more definition to dogs. So 4211 is actually dogs at large or untagged dogs and the definitions for that and the penalties.
So
There's no separate section on cats necessarily, but I think as Chaz knows, section 4210 is where she could cows, cats, whatever. And if I could just, the comment about the facilities that the sheriff mentioned is the kind of the continuation of that. And the feral cats is what'd you say, it's like a offshoot of that the county has just not been in the business of responding to feral cats or stray cats or picking them up. We don't have the facilities, which normally how the dogs work is that there's a dog at large because we end up with the dog or somebody ends up with the dog and it has ID tags and it's a little more concrete, trail of custody or evidence when they write a citation for it.
It does, so what does it say? The gentleman mentioned about being in heat.
That's 4210C. Every female dog or cat in heat shall be confined in a building or secure enclosure in such a manner that such females cannot come into contact with another animal except for a planned breeding.
Is that all it says as far as cats at large?
Pretty much.
That's the only word it uses the word cat regarding at large, yes.
Oh, okay.
But it's in there.
Right.
Right. But, I mean, the ordinance only states cats that are in heat. So, I don't know the situation with this individual cat. And I technically can't ask the question, so.
And I would just offer, like, the concern I don't think is that, the ability to issue a citation for a cat. It's the expanding picture of that. If we're going to respond to more, and I'll say from an administration standpoint, an allocation of staff time. If we do more in the cat, like, okay, property owner complains about a cat, we write a citation, we have to investigate that, write a citation, fine. But if we're gonna start responding to stray cats in people's yards and having to go figure out who owns them, that could be.
Well,
an increase
I
in
just
staff
want to
time.
pop in and say, I don't think that's necessarily what, we may be just jumping out and start doing, but at the same time, if we have an instance like this and it's an ongoing situation, I have to agree with the individual and say something's got to be done. You just can't continually have this cat come over and screw around or whatever it may be doing. He's tried to work with his neighbor, contacted the control, he spoke to you about it. And I understand your situation, what you did, you were, talking to the new person. So, but I think something should be done with this neighbor. It's just my thoughts. I don't know if that's
Without getting into too many details, because it's potential litigation, I'll let animal control talk and she maybe can fill you in if anything's been addressed. I honestly don't know.
Yeah, I don't want to get,
We can respond because this is not public comment.
oh, okay, all right, okay,
He down here on our agenda,
okay.
so.
Yeah, so in regards to this specific situation, it has been addressed. I did go and speak with them multiple occasions, like Ben said. And as of earlier this week, they did receive a citation. I did offer them another option to surrender the cat, but they opted out of that option. So it has been addressed and closed for now.
Okay. Once I kind of pointed towards you, sorry, Ben, but say it doesn't end and you have to go back again, what's your next, what happens next?
If it keeps happening, with dogs, obviously I haven't really dealt with cats,
Right.
but, in a case with dogs, if it keeps being at large, after a citation, then I just continuously give citations worth, more money and that kind of stuff.
So in that citation, you received a fine?
Yes, yeah, citation
That
is a
was-
fine, yeah,
So this individual did get a citation?
correct. I hand delivered it to them earlier this week. I don't remember what day.
So I guess what comes in front of this committee next is how we want to keep this ordinance the same, or do we want to take a chance to look at it, right, Andy? And change it. So
It is pretty.
it is vague, but you know, when I got a call from Ben, Andy, and then talked to Andy, I went through the ordinance. I did see it said cats in there, and it is vague. So I guess I'd like to hear from each one of the committee members on how you want to look at this. What do you want to do with it? Leave it or change it? Now, this situation has been handled, so, which is good, and I'm glad it's handled, that part's done with now. But we need to go to a way that Shazan knows what to do with cats. Especially cats at large, not these feral cats. I mean, she'd be all over the county getting calls. So go ahead, Marshall.
Chaz, what do you want to see change in the verbiage? What's gonna make it easier for your job or make the most sense? So we didn't come to this point in a public safety meeting about cats.
Yeah, I guess if a change needs to be made, instead of saying general term animals, I guess if we want to specify what animals, just because, I mean, I could get calls about cows, obviously, but like squirrels, chipmunks, you know, all of this kind of stuff, if we just say animals.
Awesome. Quickly, Ben.
Again, first of all, I mean, chipmunks and everything else are wild animals. We're talking about domesticated animals and people's animals for feral at large. And I would just recommend if you guys want to take cats out of the equation and do horses and cows and everything else, then give the property owners a recourse where they're not going to be the one brought up on charges if they catnap that cat, or they have an animal in their yard that ends up hurting that cat, that they're not going to be held liable. Because right now, the way it is, or I'm being told, is if, again, and I do not want to hurt a cat at all. I'm talking about, again, if you're being, these are happening over and over again and you have no recourse with the law, someone's going to take matters in their own hand. And I think it's a little odd to say they're the ones being punished for it. They're going to get a fine or get a charges, as Sheriff Motek said, if I decided to hurt an animal that was in my yard that was someone else's animal. I'm the one being brought up in charges here. So if you're going to take cats out, then please, and not necessarily for my sake, but for anyone else, give them a recourse where they're not going to be the ones brought up on charges, because there's not going to be no enforcement over a domestic animal. So I would just recommend that. Thank you.
Mr. Sorowski, go ahead.
I guess I'd just like to add that I think the verbiage needs to be worked on. You know, whether it's a dog, it's a cat, it's a cow, if it's my pet raccoon, if it makes trouble, we need to address it.
Right.
We need to put it into our verbiage, is what I got to say.
Okay. Any?
I think if it's of course we can't do nothing with wild animals, but I think if it's a cat or a dog, I remember going on calls for horses that are in the road or whatever. So I think if it's a pet, I think we should take care of it.
Okay.
Whether it's a dog or a cat or,
Yeah.
Because cats can be destructive too, just like a
They
dog.
can, yeah.
So I could just say domestic animals then, right? That's cats, dogs and everything?
Domesticated animals,
Sure.
because domestic might be something that's a typical domestic animal. Domesticated animal could be any wild animal that's made domestic.
Andy, what do you think?
It's a domesticated animal, I guess.
I don't have any good recommendations, because I think at the end of the day, code enforcement has to have some discretion. Because now this cat issue specifically, there's domesticated cats, there's feral cats, and then there's something in between that are outside cats or neighborhood cats that we've had calls
Barn
about.
cats, yeah.
That they're not pets, proving ownership, so to speak. Yeah, and we've had calls historically on those, like there's a cat in the neighborhood, somebody's feeding it, but it's not really a pet, or multiple people are feeding it, but it's not a pet. And so that's why I'm worried about how much time we're gonna allocate towards those types of things.
Who had their hand up? Linda Zilmer?
Judge, you really seem like you.
I don't want to say this. That's just why I'm trying, especially on the record in a public.
Well, it depends, Judge. Whatever happens might down the road might come before
Say you
you.
might,
No, and it's got nothing to do with that, really, but the truth is, as long as, please don't anybody take this in the wrong way. You cannot be criminally charged for dealing with an animal on your property as long as you do it in a humane way. Animals are considered property by law, so it would be nothing but a civil case. If you were to terminate somebody's animal, God, I hate that I'm even saying this. If you were, because they say came on your property or came after your child or something like that, you could, as long as you did it in a humane way, and the only recourse that person would have would be to civilly sue you.
Okay, so I agree it was handled the right way. There was a citation issued. And I believe that we should just change the verbiage a little bit. There should be something on there for them cats. It's been on the books. It's never been enforced. Been a call, it's been handled. So somehow we gotta change that verbiage. How we go about that, Andy?
On the agenda.
yeah, we'll come up with, I guess if you're telling us to come up with some verbiage for you to look at, we'll do that.
Well, I don't wanna, listening to these guys, I don't wanna take cats off. I mean,
Okay, yeah.
No,
actually, my whole thought of the whole thing was I didn't even wanna change the ordinance. But I'm listening to these guys and, you know, and I want their input and then listening to the judge and Ben, and we need to do something to make this right. So Jazanne doesn't have to stumble over what she can do and what she can't do in her job.
I just want to say that was a question. I wasn't saying we needed to change. I was saying, do we need to?
No, I think the issue was resolved, wasn't it, Ben? She was cited, or the neighbor was cited, and it's a done deal now, right?
Just heard that the citation issued, so if that's happened, then hopefully, like I said, the situation's resolved, and she said if we keep continuing, there may be further enforcement, but that sounds great. Like I said, I brought this up a month ago, so now it sounds like it's been resolved.
So Chazan can use the discretion and go about it the way it's written now and leave it at that, I think.
I would agree with that part of it too, Marshall. But, what do you guys think? I mean, it's there. She's animal control. And I guess if she gets a call, let her use her discretion, whether citations or whatever need to be issued or how she can enforce whatever is being brought in her attention. And just leave the ordinance as is. John Strelski?
I'm just thinking about Andy's point of, you say cat, but there's at least 3 different cats. There's the cats that are in my house. There's the one that comes by at night and steals food out of the backyard. And there's barn cats. There's a million barn cats in Sawyer County. So now that really kind of clouds your definition of a cat.
Yeah, and I was gonna say earlier too, like, kind of going along with that, there's a bunch of different kinds of cats. So like with dogs, we have our licensing system, so we can clarify who owns this dog or if it's a stray or that kind of thing. Typically, with cats, we don't have that. So someone could think it's a stray, but it actually belongs to somebody. It just wandered off, and we can't really.
Why can't we put that in the ordinance that the cats have to be licensed? That's more revenue for the county. You want to do that, Andy?
I'm looking down at Lynn, because we're already having problems licensing dogs.
Oh, sure.
Okay, that was just a thought. I just thrown it out there. I can understand that part of it.
There are entities, municipalities that do have cat licenses, so it's not out of the question. It's just, I know from dog licensing, like we rely on the towns to help with that, but we have towns turning that back into us to license the dogs, you know. it's hard to like keep the dog licenses current. Cats would, I mean, it's doable if we really wanted to do
No,
it.
I just wrote that out.
I don't know if the juice is worth the squeeze on that one though.
I like the input, Andy. That's, yeah. Ben, go ahead, because we got to get rolling here.
Or it's a stray, if you're gonna feed it. You're
pet.
taking on responsibility of that kind of your animal. Also, again, maybe just the way going forward is, if easier way to call a cat that constantly is on the property, a nuisance animal too. I don't know if that's the way to kind of go forward with a certain thing or as discretion depending on that. If there's nothing else for the ordinance, but, I appreciate again that the ordinance, we enforced it and I appreciate the conversation that we're having about how to go forward.
Okay, all right, thanks, Ben. So anyway,
This cat identifies as.
let's go on. Yeah, anyway, so what we're gonna do, Chaz, is we're gonna leave that in your discretion how to handle that. So, when you get that call, you go out there, you do what you think you gotta do, and whatever your decision is, that's fine with this committee, and you're okay to do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, all right, number 11. Radio communication project agreement and resolution, discussion and possible action.
So everything that's listed in the agenda essentially is everything that we've had on here for a couple months, all the legal agreements regarding the potential partnership with Bug Tussle, as well as at the 16th and 17th were the presentations you saw at last month's county board meeting. So I did send an email to the board yesterday. We finally have pulled together as much information as we could to help with doing the due diligence on really focusing on Bug Tussle. So we did get a analysis done, due diligence work done by PMA, which is our financial advisor. They help us issue the bonds. When we do that, they also help us with our investments. They were able to do a limited analysis. Just want to highlight in there, they were unable to do a credit analysis, which I think probably was maybe the most important thing. We did not have current financials for Hilbert for 2023. We did get 2021 and 22, which we have looked at and provided. But there's just no way that their credit team could do any type of credit analysis given the limited information, the adjustments that were already shown in their financials, and just the time frame we were working under. The pro forma analysis essentially goes through Bug Tussle's projections for the project. Also included that in the email, what's been looked at. So it looked at the financials provided. That includes projects in Fond du Lac, Marathon, Lafayette, Waushara, Price, Iowa, Jefferson Forest, Taylor, and Sawyer counties. And they essentially look at those financials, that the revenues are coming from rent, backhauls, fixed wireless revenue, and fiber use, fiber revenue. That's how Bug Tussle generates the revenue to service the debt. We're extending our borrowing capacity in exchange for use of the towers and the fiber. PMA's financial analysis, again, it was limited just based on the information provided. They did note that, Bug Tussle is assuming subscriptions for 40% of homes passed, starting out and up to 60%. And the financials work well if they meet 90% of those goals, but once it gets below 70%, they start to see stress on their projections for revenue that's adequate to support the debt. So that's kind of where things are at as far as analysis. Frankly, it's not nearly as much as we would have liked to have seen from information from Bug Tussle, and the timeline and the information doesn't lead to a real adequate credit analysis to say to the board, yeah, this looks like it'll work. The revenues will be enough to support the debt service. So I think, we've spent a little time on this and I thought initially it was an opportunity to build out a public safety network radio infrastructure, provide the towers and the fiber to do that, as well as increase cell service and broadband for the county. But, I guess not that you've asked for recommendation, but if I'm going to give you one anyway, I put it in the email to the board that we're not recommending moving ahead with Bug Tussle. It does get us the coverage. Can they complete the project? Yes, I think they could. They've been in this business a long time. They're working with a lot of counties, which is a positive. There are counties that are re-upping and doing a second phase of their projects, but also the number of counties involved and the, in excess of 200 million in debt they're taking on is also a potential con, and that if the debt can't be serviced. And Hilbert, so Bug Tussle is an entity, that's who the entity created to do this project. Hilbert is the second guarantor of that. If the revenues don't work and if Hilbert can't fulfill it, then the counties are each responsible for their portion of the debt. And then in the analysis, all the counties I mentioned, if it's $100 million of debt service, the revenues from all of those counties combined, so what they make in broadband and cell service contracts in Jefferson County, in Marathon County, and Price County, all go in to pay the debt service. So if we have excess revenue, it's going to help service debt if another county is short. But if they don't meet projections in all the counties and default, and Hilbert can't fulfill the debt service, then each county is going to be responsible for their portion of it. It is less, going with them would be less out of pocket for us because we wouldn't have to build towers or microwave equipment because we'd have the fiber to use. But at the end of the day, it's just the risk to me is too excessive. Potentially we're liable for up to 16 million. That's a 30-year bond that will be serviced. We'd have access to the towers for 30 years. But we're also anticipating or trying to anticipate that over that 30 years that the revenue stays consistent, that cell phone tower leases and fiber use and broadband access will continue to generate revenue for them to service the debt. It very well might, but 30 years is a long time and technology changes. I don't know what other competition there'll be for, I think board members have mentioned satellite for a radio system. Well, that's not in the cards today for satellite for radios. It is in the cards for broadband. And will that increase and steal business away from fiber or fixed wireless? Potentially would. So that's, kind of the conclusion I'm at. And I don't know, Mike wants me speaking for him, but from the finance side, he's 100% in agreement that we just are not going to recommend going ahead with Bug Tussle. And the other option then is back to kind of the original of building towers, building at least probably 2. And we're going to caveat that the board goes in that direction and says we're going to build towers. First thing we're going to do is talk about leases with towers that already exist and do a cost benefit on lease rates versus building. So worst case scenario, we're looking at a project of 2.75 is the estimate provided by GenCom for building the towers we need, the microwave equipment, the radio simulcast sites. So that's the direction we would steer you in. If you have questions, I can go into a little more detail on the financials, but.
I got a couple here and comments. So like you mentioned, there'd be a lot of counties involved with Bug Tussle, but that could be a negative also.
Right.
What you're saying there, it could take away as far as getting things done for us or having to, pay things if they don't follow up on their promises. Now this $2 million, is that one tower or is that the 2 towers you're talking about possibly?
The 275 number, the total project is about, that's 2 towers and shelters.
Right.
It's about $1 million and 1.1 million of the cost is the 2 towers.
And then also, if we do it on our own, what are we looking for a time frame?
Not much different. I mean, still the timeline to get the tower permitted and licensed is going to be the same.
Because GenCom would be doing all that kind of stuff.
Correct.
They've done all this stuff in the past.
Yep.
So it's something they're used to and they can just pick it up just like Bug Tussle would and get all these.
Right. And honestly, I think it might be a little quicker I didn't mention this yet, but I have talked to other counties that are doing bug tussle projects that involve, and it's not so much the towers, but they're running behind schedule in other counties already. And even though they said they could get us up and running by the end of 2025, based on some of the feedback from other counties, I'm
And
not
that's what I was
optimistic.
talking about. That could be a negative that, you know,
Right.
they could be working here. Oh, yeah, we're gonna get you going, but, well, not really. And then, because as we know, we want to get this all going as soon as possible.
As soon as possible.
So my thoughts, and I really, really appreciated your email. Thought it was very informative. So I'm going with what Andy's recommendation is.
Okay.
Thank you.
So do we need to act on this? It's just gotta go to the county board.
It's going to the county board tonight. I'll give them the same
Okay.
comments
Yeah,
there.
I agree. Yeah, so. But I know we have to do something for the safety of our officers, our EMS, our firefighters. We have to have this in place. Sooner the better. So, go ahead, Mr. Soroki.
I think that's the important thing is we're talking for the safety for the police, for the EMS, for the citizens, not so much for broadband coverage, not so much for cell service. That can all change. Next month, everything could go to satellite and we'd be sitting there for the next 30 years. And for the residents of the county, just being the opportunity for us to have to come up with, we have to give up 16 million bucks. I don't want my residents to have to do that. That's my point. So I go along with Andy's recommendation.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Sorolski. Okay. Any more questions for Andy? All right, thanks, Andy. All right, number 12, child support. Ms. Okamona is not here. She sent us a report. Anybody have any questions on her report? Not? None? Okay. Number 13, emergency services. All right, Mr. Bremmel, you're up.
Right. So as you can see, our runs have increased by 95 from last year. So that's a pretty good jump increase, almost 100 more runs this year to this date than last year. I broke it down in the townships of what I had right there. So if anybody got any questions on those. Thanks, John. So the other thing is Narcan. Narcan use with officers is up. Between everybody, you can see there's 41 doses Narcan before the EMS arrives that was given. However, on the coroner side of things, when I wrote this report, we had no deaths related to fentanyl at the time. However, that has currently changed as we've gotten one. Plus, we've had another critical incident with fentanyl without getting into details, we had another critical incident with a fentanyl overdose. I think, what the county's been doing with supporting the fentanyl awareness has been obviously working because, last year, if I would have brought up a report last year, we'd probably have about 8 to 10 deaths by now, and we've got one. So I congratulate the county on all their efforts and the law enforcement with getting that Narcan out there and protecting the public. On another note, our prices across the board on drugs have increased 10%. So obviously, that when those prices go up, our prices, my cost goes up on using when we use a drug. We've got multiple suppliers, so when we buy just whatever the cheapest, that's the same that we use, same concentrations and everything. But pretty much everybody's at the same price right now because there's so many shortages that they don't have to go down. Also some of the, like I said, a lot of the drugs are on shortages right now. Some of the Some drugs like, Ativan and Narcan for me is kind of hard to get to sometimes. We have plenty. I'm not worried about getting it that way, but when we do get it, we get it in a lot bigger quantities because we have to order it so far out. I have my own thoughts of why it's a shortage for me, but we'll leave that for another day. All the county places that wanted AEDs and Narcan kits, that they're all out. The cabinets are out there. So now the vet's office has an AED with a Narcan kit, and so does the airport. And plus the county in here, we have 2 here. So if there's any other departments that want AEDs that are outlying, they can just get a hold of me, because obviously I'd like to get those out there, because we have had saves with them, and they're just having one close by, not only helps my people out, but helps the citizens out. We ordered a bunch of first responder bags for the officers and for the highway department. Those have been out. We've had a pretty bad rollover where the officers had to deploy those, and worked out great because there's some stuff like Israeli bandages in them and stuff. So those have been perfect for my guys. We've got nothing but good feedback on that. Let's see. As far as the coroner system goes, or the medical examiner system goes, like I said, we've had no deaths when I wrote this report. However, since I wrote this report, we have 1 that has come back. I'm just waiting on the last part of the toxicology before I send that out as a final. Any questions?
No, anybody have any questions for Mr. Fremmel?
I just,
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Elway.
when you said there's another critical incident, does that mean that there's 2 deaths by?
No, not deaths. It was a critical incident. I don't want to get into it because I had HIPAA laws and stuff like
I
that.
don't need names on them, just.
No, yeah, well, because there's some specifics that I don't want to get into that would really, but it was I'm gonna call it a critical incident. It's something that I gotta follow up on as the EMS wise, and I have been following up with certain departments throughout the county with this. So
That's fine.
Yeah.
We understand.
it's not a death.
Okay, so we had 1 death
1 death and 1 critical incident.
by fentanyl.
Okay.
Or because of it, I should say.
Okay, any more questions?
Thank you. Sorry.
Mr. Shurovsky?
As you talk about the increases in the drug costs, is that a problem? Is that something that needs to be addressed as far as for your budget money?
It doesn't need to be addressed because last budget I moved money out of that away because we weren't, we didn't need, or my budget didn't meet that, but now that it increased, I have already for next year increased to put that money back just to cover that just in case.
I was just thinking it is budget time.
Yep,
No.
yeah, I just got done with Mike last month increasing that because the increased cost of the drugs.
Very good.
And the biggest problem with the increased cost of the drugs is everything has an expiration date. So, and when we buy, I'm replacing a lot of drugs at one time, and some of these vials I think they only cost like pennies to make, but they are very expensive to buy. So
I'm sure,
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Any more questions? All right, thank you. Number C, update discussion on Round Lake EMS station request, Mr. Alvarado.
Yeah, I don't have anything written, but I guess I can tell you that my recommendation, and as we put the budget together, is not to pursue a new EMS station or a 24-hour station at Round Lake. I have reached out to Round Lake, who sent us the letter offering the land, and asked if there was a committee that was working on it there, or requesting it, that I could meet with to kind of go through the numbers. They don't, but they have a couple people that have really been driving that, so I'm gonna meet with them to have more of a discussion on their request. I can just give you the basic details. The study that was done in 2017 on EMS cited a location here in Hayward and one in southern part of the county, which ended up being Ojibwa, based on the call volumes and the call locations. And looking at where we're at now, nothing is substantially changed. based on that. You can see in the numbers, most of our calls are around Hayward, Bass Lake, Town of Hayward, and then Winter is probably the next one. If we were to put a third base in, it probably would not be in Round Lake based on where the other two are, based on the call volume. But I know they're very passionate about it out there. But you look at the numbers, and a new building itself is going to be $500,000 or more. The cost to operate it isn't significant, but there is just overhead, lights, utilities, gas. And then honestly, the way the service runs though, if we took we wouldn't necessarily need to increase staffing. We would take the second rig from here, put it out there. But as much volume as there is around Hayward, every time the Hayward ambulance would go on a call, we'd probably pull the ambulance from Round Lake into Hayward. So we'd have a building and a base there that probably wouldn't have an ambulance there very much. Because if Ojibwa went on a call, we'd adjust Round Lake. So either one of the other ambulances is going to be more busy than Round Lake. So Round Lake's ambulance will always be covering another part of the county. So, I mean, that's the summary version of.
They're being taken care of. Nothing's really being installed.
It's not, I mean, it does take time, obviously, from an ambulance from Hayward to get out there. If we were going to focus our energy, and John can back me up on this, we would focus it on first responders in that area to be able to get to the patients first until an ambulance arrives on scene. That's probably a better investment than more facilities.
Well, in a perfect world, we'd have a lot more stations out there. We don't, it's in a perfect world, obviously.
You're doing this before?
Yes, yes, you saw me.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've been pushing and asking the fire departments to start working with first responders and getting licensed first responders because, especially out in Spider Lake, they got and Round Lake has some really good first responder groups out there. And they can get 90% of the stuff done. So by the time we get there, or my guys get there, it's load up. A lot of the good stuff is done. And then we just start heading to wherever we need to get to. And on top of that, a good first responder group for a fire department, that increases call volume for that department. Well, fire has a lot, it's easier for fire to get funding than EMS. So call volume is very important for a fire department because fire is considered an essential service where EMS is not. So.
So what about, where's the Stone Lake ambulance station at now?
So we're trying to get the Stone Lake ambulance down into Exlin. That we're gonna be stationed in there. The only issue that we've been having right now is I've had a few mechanical issues with some of the ambulances. So especially the rear doors, there's been a lot of rear door issues and they've been stuck at the maintenance well, not our maintenance, but Timber Ford. Like I have one right now that's been there for 3 weeks waiting on some door handle parts.
Okay.
So I can't, until I get that one back, then I can't put it down. But that's where it's going is Exlin,
Where will it be?
the fire department.
What would happen if we put it back in Stone Lake?
What would happen?
Yeah.
Well, there's no EMTs in Stone Lake right now.
They've all
Yes,
So we're gonna have EMTs in Exlin.
Well, they have EMTs in Exlin. I have people that work for me that actually live in that area. And then there's even some that live in Ladysmith, but so they're actually, if there was a critical incident, they could come up from there. I have one paramedic that lives in the Washburn side of Stone Lake. But that's it right now. And he normally just works. He doesn't respond to those calls.
All right. Thank you. Any more questions for Mr. Fremmel? All right, you got a question, Andy? No? Okay, number D. Resolution adjusting medical examiner's fees.
So as part of, John and I have talked about this during the year, but really right now during the budget time, we're focusing in on looking at revenues and our payments and fee schedules. Medical examiner is something that has not been touched in 7 years, probably actually 9 years. So what the resolution is would be setting in motion some annual increases to the fees. So most probably aren't aware because you wouldn't need to be, but in 2017, 2015, they set through legislation a moratorium on fee increases related to coroners and medical examiners. And the moratorium resulted in no fee increases from July 14th of 15 to July of 2017. And then after that, limits the fee increases to the U.S. Consumer Price Index for all consumers, U.S. city average as determined by the U.S. Department of Labor for the 12 months ending on December 31st of the prior year. So we have not been having any increases to our fees. Really drove this is our cremation release. We charge $50 for it now. Most medical examiners, coroners are $100 or more. So the only way for us to start increasing our fees is to pass a resolution authorizing the increases. And what this resolution does is increases the fees effective October 1st to the CPI for last year of 3.4%. And then we would increase line 17 in here. So we would result in an annual increase in January of every year for the next 5 years by the allowable annual CPI increase from December of the previous year. So I did that rather than bring a resolution every year, just put a 5-year increase, it'll sunset at 5 years, or we can revisit it and see where we're at with our fees. But this, by statute, we couldn't adjust anything related to death certificates, cremation releases, or transport costs beyond CPI. And that is what we're doing, is implementing that now.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Luke.
I make a motion to approve the raise in the coroner fees.
Medical examiner.
Oh, medical examiner.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a second, motion by Mr. Elway, a second by Mr. Haney to approve the medical examiner's fees. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. All right, number 14. Andy?
Yep, I wanted to bring up for discussion the MOU between the county and the Cudahy Band of Lake Superior Indians for the Criminal Justice Coordination Committee. This was expired earlier this year, and initially we had heard that the tribal governing board had declined to renew the agreement. And then we heard that they were reconsidering, and then it's been silent here for the last few months. I've reached out, asked if we could meet with the TGB to discuss it, appear at one of their meetings, get any communication back. We understood that they wanted to make some changes to the MOU, and haven't heard anything. And so at some point, I think we need to address it, because the MOU had some financial commitments that the county would provide a minimum sum of $50,000. This is when it was originated, that the county provide $50,000, and the TGB agreed to provide $50,000 to criminal justice programs, which is something a lot of it is based on what we talked about earlier with getting into the diversion programming, the recovery court, and supporting those things. Essentially, that's the match that we get for the TAD grant from the state. It also outlined the representatives on the CJCC, that the county board provide 2 board members, and the tribal governing board shall provide 2 board members to the CJCC as well. And so we don't have an agreement, don't have any communication from LCO or the tribal governing board, so I'm not sure.
So do we need to budget to make up that $50,000? Because obviously the funds are needed.
Yeah, we would need to make up specifically the match that covers with the treatment diversion grant from the state.
Okay, and they're supposed to provide 2 people on the committee. if they're not agreeing to the, the agreement, or whatever, then do they continue on the committee then, or what?
That's what I wanted to bring up here. I don't know that I'm gonna stake out a hard position myself on that without involving this is the committee of jurisdiction over the CJCC, so I'm
Correct.
starting here. I also have it on, or asked to have it on for the CJCC meeting next week to discuss that as to how we proceed.
And I understand your reluctance there, but at the same time, if they don't want to abide by or fulfill their obligations, and they need to be involved, but at the same time, how is it right or whatever, whatever. But for them to continue to be on the committee if they're not going to totally invest themselves.
Right. That's kind of what I would see, that we had an agreement for financial commitments and board representation, and if we don't have that agreement, then we should probably at least address the board makeup of the CJCC. I think, I want to make sure what you said is good and correct, that we want them to be involved. It's better if they're involved. I think we make more progress if it's a partnership, but I just haven't been able to get any movement on it.
Good. Is that a discussional thing, put it on the agenda to discuss?
Yep.
And then.
I guess I want to make you aware so that.
Right.
This is where we're at.
And I believe we do.
I mean, I'm gonna reach out again and.
And then we can put it back on
Next week's
next month's
meeting might
agenda.
have some conversation about
Yeah.
it.
Then we'll put it on next month's agenda for hearing.
Yep, we'll talk about it at CJCC and
Okay,
report back.
all right. Right. Any more questions for Andy on this? All right, number 15, board appointed committee updates. I have a letter. It doesn't really pertain to a committee, but it was wrote to the County Board of Supervisors, and it was given to Mr. Kinsley, the chairman, and he turned it over to me, and I want to read this, and maybe Judge Isham and maybe Nicole can help me with this to understand what he's asking here. My name is Sam Berquist. I am a freshman at the Hayward High School. I was recently assigned a project where I had to write a public official addressing a problem that concerns me. The problem that has my attention for a while would be the litter. I love being outside. I bike almost every day. I take my puppy for walks multiple times a day and occasionally go on runs. And every single time I go out on the roads, I always notice litter. I do my best to pick up the wrappers, bottles here and there, but one person can only cover a tiny area and pick up stuff. According to the National Geographic, 79% of the plastic ends up on roads, bodies of waters, and landfills. Another resource is KAB.org. I don't know what that is. They are a team that cleans up trash and litter in America. KAB stands for Keep America Beautiful. They estimate that there are over 50 billion pieces of litter along roadways, waterways in America, but they aren't able to reach every corner of our country, so we have to help them out. So my solution is for an organization to be put together to get rid of litter around Sawyer County. An idea I had in mind for the organization was people in jail, going to jail, to have specific time to help pick up trash and litter on the streets and roads. These people would, of course, be supervised by police and authorities in case sometimes where this would happen. But I believe even people who have done bad things should have the opportunity to get fresh air and exercise. Plus, it helps out our community and county by making the roads work nicer and well kept. Thank you for the time, and I look forward to hearing back from you. So I guess one of my questions would be for the judge is, when somebody comes before you and would you give them like community service to do that?
That's such a good question. First, I will say that's an impressive young man. I like that. I love the assignment. Great assignment. And I love the research and the thought that went into that letter. Yeah, that's moving. I like that. So community service is not, in order to have community service, you need to have somebody who would coordinate and manage community service. So while community service is part of a lot of dispositions, like let's say somebody who's a juvenile is in trouble for something, it might be part of their disposition that they do 30 hours of community service. But usually they have to reach out through the help of whomever their case manager is. They have to reach out to places that already exist that have community service efforts to be a part of those groups. We don't have a county-wide community service group. So we would not be able to sentence or to dispose someone to a specific duty like cleaning up the roads. We would be able to say you have to do 30 hours of community service, but it's up to the person really to decide how they go out and do that. Because otherwise, who would we have to manage them?
Right.
We wouldn't, we'd have to take it off of somebody's word or whatever the case may be. I know I can't supervise people,
Right.
but I maintain that I think community service is a great way to dispose of a case and of a situation if it's available. There used to be more options when we did, I was in like middle school, but I remember there being a community service coordinator at that point, and somebody did manage things like that, and they had like a list of community service needs. And when somebody was ordered or disposed to do community service, they would assign them to something on that list. It could have been something like roadside cleanup.
Yeah.
But that's gone away. And there's not people who are gonna do that. I like the idea.
Right.
I like the idea to have, somebody be able to have that as an alternate disposition to jail or something else. But I don't know how workable it is unless there's somebody hired or something through the county to do it.
That would be the same way with inmates, right, Deputy? I mean, you have to have somebody supervise them too.
Right.
I guess with being, you guys are so busy, and I know the court system's so busy, how you would have time to do that. So what I'm asking is, who would be able to answer this young man back? I mean, Kinsley pawned it off on me. Now I'm trying to pawn it off on somebody else.
I'm just gonna add.
I mean, it's a good letter.
On the inmates, I've asked about the inmate work crews and if they're sent with Huber privileges and don't have a job, you can offer them work, but you can't make them do it.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
Well, in the past, you're probably aware of this, and Jeff, you probably, in the past, they did have inmates go out when the Huber officer was, what's her name? Donna, yes, Donna. She took them out in a van and, and they would do it for so many hours, and they got time off their sentence. And to go along with the community service, my daughter actually, years ago, probably, I think it was about 10 years ago, she was given community service. I don't know how she hooked up with this, it's a place down on 63 that it's an antique place or whatever, or something, but she worked at that place for so many hours. And when she had the hours, the lady signed off on it, but so, just to go along with. Right. And as far as this young man, we had this young man in our daycare until he was 4 years old. He is an awesome kid. He was an awesome child. He's an awesome kid. It doesn't surprise me he wrote this.
You want to respond to him?
I just say you, because it'd be great to have the administrator's title on that, because.
And also, if you think
just
of
for
the
this kid.
purpose of the assignment, right? The purpose of the assignment is to
Right.
get children involved with their community and understanding how local governments work. So I think that having a response from
Right.
the person who's kind of in charge of all that would.
Well, I thought this would be the committee to read this.
I like
at.
it. I like it.
And I was gonna try to see if we could get that young man to come to this committee meeting, but I see they're in school now, so I didn't want to bother with that part of it. I mean, we could have had him sit right up there next to Marshall Savitsky, you know. So anyway, Andy, can I turn this over to you? Oh, God, thanks.
I bet you could get him in here.
Well, I thought probably, yeah, he could do it as part of a school project, but anyway, it's, anyway, I appreciate it. Yeah. So does anybody have any more committee updates that they want to report, Mr. Sorrells?
Just on that same vein of thought, the roadsides are terrible. And there should be something done about that. It's as if it was a dump site, but a lot of it is coming right, and I've seen this in my many years back and forth, coming to Hayward to work 32 years, and I'd be following one of the garbage trucks.
Yeah.
And as you're going along, it's like,
Stuff flying out the back of them.
so I'm blaming people for throwing garbage out, but that's where most of it's come from.
I'm not gonna get on my soapbox, but my just lived here my entire life, and things have changed since COVID, where people used to come here because their families have always come here on vacation and whatnot. This is like a piece of them. No, people who come here now don't view us the same way. We're their playground. And I think that, it's not as respected because they don't feel like it's a piece of them. And I honestly, I think that that's why things have deteriorated, because I see it too. And yeah, and even on the lake, I see people throwing cans off their boat.
It's like,
Oh,
what
yeah.
is wrong with you?
What? I'm like, so I, that's my miniature version of my soapbox, but yeah, I see it too. And thankfully, we do have a lot of local people who in their spare time will go out and clean the roads. And I always, yes, one sitting right there. And I just love those. I love those people.
Those that adopt the highways are
Yes,
really
right.
nice.
Those are great too.
And on the adopt the highway thing, unfortunately, there are organizations that fall to the wayside, and then so do those areas fall to the wayside.
Okay, no more. Mr. Haney, go ahead.
You know, it's a good idea that people are cleaning up the sides of the roads, but they also have to be very, very careful these days because of the needles and stuff that people are throwing out. I mean, I know LCO, the kids from the school used to go out and clean up the sides of the road. I hope they take good precaution,
Yeah,
when they're picking that stuff up, because it can be fentanyl or who knows what they're
right.
picking up.
No longer just using your hand.
Yeah.
Wear gloves.
I specifically tell my kids, if you see garbage, do not pick it up, show me and I'll.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. No more on the board committee, appointed committees? All right, number 16, future agenda items. Just that MOU, Lynn, that's all I got. You guys got anything? Let Andy or Lynn know. Correspondence and reports from conferences and meetings. This month, we have the Wisconsin Counties Association in La Crosse. I will be attending, Mr. Alvarado, Ms. Fitch. Who else was going? Mr. Schuman and Stacy Hessel? He told me he was going, but that could have changed. And I thought Stacy said she was going. So, okay. So, all right. If no more, I want to thank everybody. I want to thank Judge, Coroner, or Medical Examiner, I should say, and our Animal Control Officer and everybody else. We're adjourned. Thank you.